Welcome to EnergyHub TV. This week, we look at energy transition and its implication on petroleum-producing economies. We examine the significance of the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, decisions of the Conference of Parties, we revisit the 2015 Paris Agreement, and ultimately, we evaluate what the future holds for petroleum-producing economies in a world where energy transition is redefining growth. My name is Oti Francis, and with us is our special guest, Dr. Felix Amayefori, a seasoned energy researcher and veteran expert in oil and gas. Join us in this discussion.
What we had at the beginning is a primitive renewable, because everything was purely, man just, came and said, look, he was using, wood for fire. He was using water. And then gradually, because of demands, they shifted from that primitive energy to coal. So coal was the first of the fossil fuel family that came in. So that revolutionized the economy, the global economy. Of course, the first industrial revolution actually, was driven, steam, coal-powered steam, engines. And of course, at that time, what people are looking for, they were not really so much of the present day, language of energy transition. They were looking then for more energy supply, efficient energy supply, stable energy supply. This is no longer meeting our growth level. This is not as fast as possible. This is not supplying with our industrial system, So coal was running, and then of course hydrocarbon came in, and they realized that hydrocarbon is more efficient, more portable than coal, so the world has been moving, and of course gradually nuclear came in, solar came in, but not as what it was. So the world has been in one energy transition as from the beginning. But what we have today is not necessarily what we have today. Is actually, I would probably call it a reverse. Because the present renewable energy system is not as efficient as the fossil fuel energy. Because the renewable system, which is the advanced renewable system, is not about energy security. Without energy security, is not secure. Because you can't run it for 24 hours. The problem of intermittency, storage. It all depends on weather, depends on wind, depends on environmental. So it's not as stable as the fossil fuel. So it's not the same thing as if you take energy transition. Then people are looking for more efficient, more stable, more energy capacity to run their industry, to run their work. Today, they are not looking for energy security, they are not looking for energy efficiency, they are looking more for clean energy. It's more of clean energy because it's no longer driven by industrialization. It's now driven by an existential threat on the world. Over time, fossil fuel and all of that human activity have generated enough greenhouse gas effects and what we call short-lived climate pollutants, which is pure methane and all that. So these are impacting on the global atmosphere. And so the present day energy transition is not like when they moved from the primitive biomass system, renewable energy, to coal, from coal to, and they are looking for now cleaner, environmentally compliant sustainable. The sustainability is not in terms of durability, but to make sure that the entire ecosystem is sustainable. And the threat is this. The threat is that if we continue what they call business as usual,
I was supposed to come to that next.
we might quickly run to 3 degrees above pre-industrial temperature. And then, of course, you can see the whole world is turned upside down. The whole world is upside down. You don't know when it's. Those of us here in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Nigeria, where we have 2 broad weather divisions. We grew up to see a dry season and a wet season, winter and a harmattan season. All of them have dissolved. You don't know when. For those who have 4 seasons, you don't know when it's winter. When winter comes, it's like you are in the Arctic. It freezes everybody as if you are in the Arctic. So these are the challenges, and a lot of forecast scientific reports that low lands like Lagos is threatened. London, all of those coastal cities will be flooded out. And of course, we see fires in US, California, Canada, floods in Germany, in Australia. This is what is called. So if you really define energy transition, it is different from why they were transiting before. Then they were looking for energy capacity, energy intensity, power generation. But right now, that is not the focus. The focus is they are looking for a clean energy. And even this clean energy does not have enough power to run the world. Fossil fuel, look, the clean energy we have can't run the mega projects like the steel, can't run the mega projects like the cement factory. A lot of these, bigger, they need enough energy intensity to run them. So, but then the question is, if you die before that, why do you need the steel? If the world is going to be burnt out, if the world is going to dry out. So fortunately, the COP26 started yesterday, October 31st, running to November 12th in Glasgow, Scotland, in the United Kingdom. The people are trying to come together to say, can we save the world before we all become extinct? That is the energy transition today.
Thank you very much, sir. You've already answered most of my questions. Basically, looking at it, coming from the existential angle, I wanted to ask, I'm sure everyone also wanted to ask, why should we push for, why should we replace fossil fuels, why should we, looking at the broader perspective now, it is now more about all this energy that we've been mining and extracting, who is going to live to actually explore them anyway if we're going to burn the world out. And with what you just said now, there is a meeting going on in Scotland, and we have the likes of the Paris Agreement and the conventions coming together to simply find there are nations who are not as big as the top dogs, and most of these nations cannot afford to even transit. I see that some of the concerns raised in the conference is raising funds to actually help these nations access renewable energy infrastructure. So what should we look out for in this conference?
Yeah, this conference there are 4, actually things they are looking at. 4 principal objectives that they are looking at. They want to raise funds. And when this Paris Agreement 2015, and then understanding that the develop actually 80%, more than 80% of the greenhouse gas and the short-lived climate pollutants were created actually by the devil, because you see they developed with fossil fuel. That is the problem Africa is in. They got where they got with fossil fuel. So there's a lot of sentimentality, there's a lot of emotional, Sub-Saharan Africa actually is not developed. The emission contribution is insignificant. You understand, it's tiny. But everybody now know that for you to grow, you need energy intensive. You need enough energy capacity to drive your industrialization. And but here we are in sub-Saharan Africa. The guys who developed over this industrial revolution, first industrial revolution, you can imagine how much of these they have impacted the atmosphere to get to where they are. How many flights? Just this morning I was on the US shut down. Is it US or just one? Shut down 1,700 flights. How many flights do the whole Africa can shut down? How many planes fly in Africa? The biggest airline is Ethiopian airline. How many of them? Egypt Air. Let's put all the airlines together and look at how many flights that get off from Africa and get into Africa. So the entire pollution is actually from the developed economy. But here we are, life is so frustrating to them that they want to cut it off. So they are ready, as we speak, honestly, I came across a program on energy efficiency. We probably, at some point we'll talk about what is energy efficiency. We are not yet into energy efficiency. They are now moving, they are building their houses just like the old Egyptians model, where they focus the house to the sun. They are tilting the angles of the house. They are designing houses that naturally it will be energy compliant, so that there is minimal external energy source to power the house. But we have not gotten to where they are. You understand? We still need, they just need, they are industrialized. Everything is going on fine. You understand? We are going into industrialization. So that is actually the problem. Now, it's a lot more, because unfortunately, we all share the same sky. You understand? Unfortunately, we all share the same sky. So Africa and other, developing, geographies are already feeling the impact. I was watching on CNN, in the north, a part in the north, that some boys who are digging wells, they said before they get water at 7 feet. CNN showed it at 20-something feet. They were still digging. And then they showed that, look, this place used to be a good forest, now it's disappeared. Lake Chad, one of the biggest water body globally, it has gone off, it's reducing. Now there is a Lake Chad committee trying to see another, but Lake Chad is supporting millions of people around its periphery. Water table is significantly dropping. And so even one of the things that Nigeria should even worry about is, one of the renewable energies is hydropower. So while there is melting of ice and flooding the sea, you understand, the inland water will be dry. You understand? And then the hydro dams that you're building across Niger and all that will dry up. All the dams they're building in the north, they will dry up. No, they will just dry up. So that is what Sub-Saharan Africa is facing already. Listening to a young Kenyan environmentalist, young girl, she said she grew up, right now, things are upside down. So definitely transition, into renewable, I would probably say it's more of a developed economic agenda. But it's real, just like COVID. You understand? Just like COVID is real. But what the developing economies, especially the sub-Saharan economies, I'm not even now talking about the petrol-dependent economies. I'm talking of the geography. Things are getting, desertification is encroaching. And one of the danger, of course in Nigeria, I'll tell you why. Regardless of the historical challenges with herders and farmers, one of the reasons for herders crisis is because the north is getting drier and drier, and they have to move down southwards. They have to move to grazing lands that are much fertile. You understand? So that climate problems will bring migrations. It's going to cause a lot of migration. People are going to move. Of course, it's going to create a lot of poverty. And then the heat intensity that is coming, parched land, farming will almost be gone, water will be gone. You have to almost take an oil well and drill thousands of feet. So what will probably happen is that petroleum engineering will become water engineering. So all that people studying petroleum engineering, they have to turn to be drilling deep water wells, because you are not going to find water at 200 feet. You probably find water at 5,000 feet if it continues this way. So it's enormous. It's enormous. And then, you know, sadly, it's the development came from them. You understand? The development came from them. But sadly, we are paying more because we don't have the energy to survive. You know, we don't have the capacity to survive. So if they insist that we must go to 1.5, the trajectory is enormous. The trajectory is enormous. And the sad part also is that the renewable energy of solar and wind are not technically advanced enough. They are still researching on batteries. They are still researching on storage. They are still researching on to see if we can run a conventional power system. Because once the clouds gets off, solar goes off. So that and then to connect solar, which is what Nigeria is a mini grid, to grid it is also a challenge. You understand? So all of these are things that the developing economies are worried about. If you take the energy from us, then we become, presently even in Africa, about almost 600 million, 650 million Africans do not have access to power. You understand? So that is the energy poverty, even on that fossil fuel energy. It's enormous. Now you take fossil fuel that Africa is becoming parched with gas and oil. So gas, thermal power system. You understand? So now you stop them using gas, you stop them using all this, that everybody should go to solar, and they don't have the solar technology. They have the sun, but they don't have the technology to convert it. China is the biggest solar industry in the world in terms of processing. I mean, China is ahead of the US in terms of solar technology, renewable technology. I'm telling you. So China will become the Saudi Arabia, to become the Venezuela, become the Russia, because they have the technology. Their president is not attending the COP26.
I can understand that.
No, it didn't come. They are the biggest emitters, but it's home. It's home. So we need to really, Sub-Saharan Africa, you really need to understand and come together collectively to really. That's what Nigeria, you don't have to talk for Kenya, you don't have to talk for Nigeria, you have to talk for Sub-Saharan Africa. Because even under high energy intensity, we don't have energy. Something we can drill, bring the gas, put the gas into turbine system, generate electricity, we don't have. Now that the entire solar technology is going to come outside of Africa, then we're all going to live in darkness. We'll go back to the primitive where we have to come out to the sun. So that is a challenge that is going to be a major challenge. Now, COP26 is saying, you developed economies, you promised 100 billion every year. I think so far they've only contributed 78 billion to 80, so there's still 20 billion deficit every year. This is just 1 year. So what happens? You understand? And so, because the idea was to support the developing economies to be able to, what they call, NDC, they call it nationally determined contribution, which is your contribution to the net zero emissions by 2050, or of course mid-century and all that. So it's going to be, these guys polluted the world, and they should support to clean it up. But they can't clean it up in their yard. They have to come to Africa, you understand, and say, Africa, you know what? We brought you to this state, we're going to help you out of it. So it's amazing, it's interesting, but it's also scary. I can tell you it's also scary because when you fly now, you can't predict what happens. You understand? I mean, there was a time, I mean, we were flying and, we were going to the US, me and my family, and we have to stop. The wind was terrible. I mean, if he's not an experienced pilot, it will be history. This thing just come like this. It just come. The frequency, there's a chart I have. The frequency of weather, for the past 10, 15 years is terrible. So flying is now becoming a challenge. So digital world probably will save a lot of people. So that is the challenge we're working on now.
I actually like the fact that you are giving us a whole lot of depth, not just on the scale of the global power, but looking at it from the African perspective. And of course, we have a whole lot of energy deficits here that we are already suffering, and we are now bringing in the conversation of energy transition. I'm glad that our viewers can also see it from the African lens, see that we have our own reality, and the fact that it's a global phenomenon. Everyone is really taking a taste of it, from heads, the cattle rearers, farmers, down to the common man. Everyone is feeling the impact of the need for us to actually move to this energy transition. But more importantly, we also want to look at other people who are probably watching the energy, that is the oil and gas industry. How does this conversation impact them?
Yeah, okay, there are two main cultures: country and company. I would call it the CC. Because the country are the economies, the companies are the fossil fuel industry. You understand? Fossil fuel contributes, significantly, almost 60%. Coal, oil, and gas. You understand? So it's significant. And most of this, China is heavily dependent on coal. You understand? They are transiting, but their economy was built on coal. All of them built their economy on coal, and they went into, during the World War was when petrol started transiting, coal started shifting because of efficiency that is demanded, and then petrol starts coming in. Petrol is just barely a few years, not up to effectively transiting this place is not up to 100 years. That has been the energy source of the world. So right now, there are two people they are blamed. Like I said, the C for the countries and the C for the companies. So the fossil fuel companies, the coal companies, the petrol companies, the gas companies. They are saying, you guys brought all this. You probably know, I was listening to US Congress was dealing with their major oil and gas I think that was last week. And then the chair lady was upset. You understand? Say you hid something from us. Why didn't you put it on the table? Why didn't you make it clear? So while we're dealing with environmental pollution in terms of oil and gas impacting, polluting, the environment, why don't we take the atmosphere as well? We've been, honestly, gas flaring, gas from the oil and gas perspective wasn't really an energy source. Crude oil was, you understand? Because it was running ICE, internal combustion engines, are purely fuel-driven engines. Before, hybrid engines, flexible engines started coming in. And now we have, a hybrid of, biofuel. Because of energy transitions, they are beginning to grow all kinds of engines. So it was petrol, not gas. Gas was a byproduct. Gas was being flamed. Gas was not initially monetized. So now gas is being monetized. So gas flaring gas is becoming an energy. You understand? It's all a transition. Oil, fossil fuel was coal, crude oil, gas. So Nigeria was flaring gas. Gas was just burning. When we were kids, when oil is struck, the next thing you see is the flare is up 24/7, 365 days a year. But now the reality is down on us that those are principal pollutants. Those are what is creating what we call the greenhouse gas you know, and the short-lived, methane is a short-lived climate pollutant. It doesn't stay as much as carbon dioxide, but within that short period, it has more intensity than carbon dioxide. You understand? So it's much more powerful, you know, short-lived. But you can easily, what the plan is that it's not necessarily to decarbonize, but also to stop methane leaks, which is all what the oil is. So methane is not only from the oil and gas, it is general, you know, you can have methane in farming and all that. But then the oil and gas companies are now being compelled that you must stop fossil fuel. And so globally there is a war against oil and gas. But right now, for you to release funds to explore, you have to go through a defense for your life. Because the way I will interpret it is that if you want to go get money for your exploration in oil and gas, you better stand before the jury for a life sentence defense. Guilty or not guilty. No, I'm telling you, because of this COP 26 meeting, before a few banks, but now a lot more financial, you know, a lot of people have come in, just not too long, about, they just created what they call the Glasgow intervention, where they are managing almost about $70 trillion, about 1,500 of institutional people are coming together to mop up funds for energy transition, meaning that they are not going to move those funds into, and a lot more, you know, people are beginning to divest from fossil fuel. Institutional investors are divesting from fossil fuel into, and the irony of it is this, you know, the return on investment for renewable seems higher than fossil fuel now. So while it is, some call it, you know, the capitalist, you know, there's a lot of, you know, language around it that is not really transformative, you know, transition. It's more of a capitalist transition. It's more like a profit-oriented than people-oriented. So the reason for the transition, we have to be very careful that it may not be people-oriented, but because the return on investment on renewable investment is beginning to look better than fossil fuel. So the investment is not really because you don't have water to drink, but because I make more profit out of you. You understand? So, but on the other side, the technology to clean the environment exists, but not matured. That's the problem. You know, there is the, you know, what they call carbon capture, utilization and storage, CCSU, storage, you know, CCS and all that. That you capture, you know, one other solution is, of course, we do. Nigeria is also into it, you know, planting a lot of trees because it has capacity as carbon sink. Yeah. So honestly, financing oil and gas will have to come from your pockets. Because if you go to the major institutions that usually support and invest in fossil fuel, you will have to go through a death sentence. Because the requirement is increasing. The requirement is increasing. So if you don't have the balance sheet to fund your own project, but also that, not only that, you know, there are a lot of things that will come in on your head. Because you will not be free, because you need to have to show what is your emission, you know. In Nigeria, we have environmental impact assessment, and that environmental impact assessment is purely, you are not going to pollute the land, you are not going to do this. But now, if you want to raise money from any financial, in fact, because of this, about 17 central banks have decided to shut down everything on you. You can't pass through. For the central banking that to be able to do that for you, you are going to go through more like a death row jury to see whether you should be hung, a hangman. That is the way funding is going to look like. It's no longer NPV. You know, the return on investment on oil is no longer on NPV. No, it's now on SDG. You understand? It's more on. So what they are going to be ranking you is not your NPV on profit, But where are your SDG and ESG, environmental sustainability and governance? You understand? You are going to be ranked on those ones and see that whatever you are producing, you are buying it back. You are taking it away. Otherwise, it will be difficult. Now, of course, you saw Tesla and this car industry buying about almost how many thousand of electric vehicles. So that also is a challenge on ICEs, on internal combustion engines. You understand? So the oil industry is really, for them to really survive now, even for Nigeria and for all oil producers, for them to survive, they have to be technologically and environmentally driven to demonstrate to the financiers, the investors, to the regulators, now I just want to listen to this all through, because one of the things they want to do is let's work together. You understand? The first one is that, listen, we need to keep climate temperature, you know, we need to struggle to keep it at 1.5, but it's almost late. It's almost late to keep it at 1.5. There are now designs of 1.65. You understand? Even at 1.65, you know, it's quite threatening. But it's clear that by a report issued by IPCC, you know, in August, already 1.5 is gone. So now if you listen, they are talking about 2.7. So what they are struggling now is to even keep it at below 2. Not necessarily, but 1.5 is almost nearly out of target. And so the fossil fuel industry will have to be innovative. They have to be creative. Because for every barrel of oil and molecule of gas, you have to pay for it. You have to demonstrate it. Though there are a lot of other things that can go for them, but then, honestly, they are the major culprits in the second C category of company, while the first C category are the developed countries. And also, honestly, also to tell you, the big people that started oil and gas are still from the developed countries, the seven sisters, you understand? So that is also the issue. So it's going to be a major, because the temperature is increasing, they don't see it as they can still keep 1.5 visible. But they will do everything to see they can by pulling resources together. And they are forcing the oil and gas industry people to support the drive. To support the drive of achieving 1.5. But if you look at the cost of 1.5, it's almost going to be very steep. And the question is, because there are a lot of studies now that to achieve 1.5, you have to shut down 60% of the reserves. Almost 60% of the reserve. You don't have to produce it. The only thing they are talking is that what you have, maintain it, but stop, like IEA, 2050 roadmap. They say that there is no more exploration project. A lot of other pathways that have come out, Wood Mackenzie pathway, Shell Sky pathway, IRENA, International Renewable Energy Agency pathway. They are saying stop exploration activity. Because if you don't stop, it will never stop. Maintain what you have, but don't bring in new reserve. So it's going to be, the question is, can the world live with a 3-degree temperature?
Wow. I was about to ask one question.
So it's really energy. It's not really a joke, I can tell you. I mean, of course, my background is petroleum engineering, but we've started thinking, there's a lot of skill transition from petroleum engineering to renewable energy. There is, but in what environment and in whose environment and at whose cost?
That's the question. I was about to ask one question, which is going to bring us back home, which is Nigeria. And at this stage, I would just say we should hold the thoughts, because on the next episode, we're going to be looking at something closer to home, which is the impact of energy transition on Nigerian oil and gas industry and of course the Nigerian economy. Please do not go anywhere. Next episode, I'm also bringing our special guest, Dr. Felix, and is going to be examining closely how does this hit home, what is the destiny of our own oil and gas industry, and what is good for our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this segment. Like I've said earlier, EnergyHub TV is an offshoot of EnergyHub.com, where we'll give you all you need to understand and know about energy industry, energy marketplace, books, research, publications, and everything you need to stay agile in today's fast-changing energy world. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
In our next episode, we'll discuss how energy transition impacts the Nigerian oil and gas industry and economy. Subscribe to EnergyHub TV and never miss anything.